What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today we are doing a reaction video. We don't get to do many of these things because, simply put, footy doesn't really provide content in that kind of way outside of our match reactions. So it's good to have something fresh and different to explore today. We are doing a reaction to the AFL.com.au top 25 players that they've predicted of 2025. We're going to go through their criteria, and then we're going to get into it. So welcome to the 25. Every month throughout 2025, so they're going to be updating it. We'll rank the best 25 players in the AFL competition based on both recent form and a body of work across previous seasons. Our panel of journalists and experts have come up with the initial 25 drop below based on 2024 performances, meaning it does not consider recent injuries that will see players miss the start of the season. Players like Marcus Bontempelli and Errol Goulden, who are both sidelined by injury for the start of the 2025 campaign, will slide down the list in the next month's rankings. The criteria is simple. If every player in the competition was fully fit and lined up against a wall right now, who would you pick first? Read on for the 25 to start 2025. We've also included the next 25, a group of players that featured in discussions and who could surge into our rankings during the year. That is what we're going through today. You can see a little peek for us here as Hoops Crew Geelong supporters. You can see a very nice surprise to kick the list off. But before we dive into the list in detail, let's take a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and what we get up to. Now, let's get into the list. I didn't realize that I had that little sneak peek there at the bottom, so I've gone and hidden it. Let's dive into number 25 on our list, which, as I've said, as Cats fans, is exciting. And certainly a player that I wouldn't have expected to see on there because I didn't think the groundswell had really built up yet. But number 25 is our own Max Holmes. And I say that, I wasn't expecting it because I think a lot of us Geelong fans would probably put him there or thereabouts in the top 25 players in the competition. That breakneck speed, the way he accumulates the ball, he's developed so quickly. And as Danger used to say, and I think as the article references, there's Paddy Dangerfield and his comments about Holmes's Judd-like traits, and he's made comments about winning Brownlows and all those sorts of things. Max Holmes is still bursting with potential. He hasn't hit his peak yet. It is crazy how good this kid is. And I'm glad that he's been recognized here by the AFL.com.au team, because I would have thought he might have fit in that next batch. And so we will look at those who missed out, 26 through to 50. But I'm stoked that he's made the list. Moving right along, James Sicily, who I think is going to pretty rapidly climb. The versatility of this bloke is unreal. And he's 30 years old. He's certainly he's closer to the end of his career now than the beginning. But he is he's looming really large for the Hawks this year. I'm already feeling pretty wobbly about my prediction about where the Hawks will place on the ladder this year. I expected a younger Hawks team to maybe slip down a little bit before bouncing again next year. But it doesn't look like that's happening based on their first game against the Pies. And he's a big part of it. The fact that they've topped up in defense such that he can now play defensive if he wants to. And of course, that's what he's known and loved for a long time. Or swing forward and be incredibly dangerous with some incredibly great hands. He's a scary prospect and absolutely belongs on this list. And I do expect him to climb up the list pretty quickly. Next up is Harris Andrews, who, he's been rock solid. He's been probably the number one key defender in the competition for a few years now. And I think for that reason, I'd argue maybe he's a smidge low as well. But of course, that's two people so far that I've said are a little bit low. I'm waiting for at least two people now that I've said, they're a little bit too high. So we'll see how that goes, but he's brilliant. And obviously now recently become a premiership player. Harry Sheasel at number 22 is one of those that I would say is too high right now. I think a bit like our man Max Holmes, chock full of potential, has demonstrated so much so far. But has he done enough to be considered in the top 25 players in the competition? I would say no, unless we are really I mean, unless the AFL.com.au media team here has kind of fallen hook, line, and sinker for midfielders, as the umpires do, and I consider that fairly likely. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit too soon. I think by the end of the season, he should absolutely belong there, or could absolutely belong there, but maybe too soon at this point. I would certainly have both Harris Andrews and James Sicily above him. Next up is Isaac Rankin, who also, talking about players who could be up, could be down. I think he's really, really close to where he ought to be. He's so dangerous still. I think consistency can still be a little bit of a concern for Isaac Rankin, but it is certainly he's becoming more and more consistent, more and more dangerous. Does incredible things around the goals, is accumulating the ball so much more as he spends more time in the midfield. And yeah, I think if the gap between his best and his worst continues to close, then I think this is going to become an increasingly accurate comment from the AFL.com.au team. Will Day. I would have his skipper ahead of him. Again, bucket loads of potential, and I think he's, as the team says here, looks like he's ready to explode after his 2025 campaign was ended by injury. I feel like, straight away with this comment, they are breaking their own criteria. That it is based on where they're at the end of 2024. They are too busy focused on his potential, a bit like Harry Sheasel, and not about where he was at the end of 2024. Will Day might be a player that rapidly ascends this list and certainly put a great foot forward with his round zero performance, but I don't think he's done enough yet to belong in the top 20 players of the competition. But stay tuned. He'll climb this list soon. Jason Horne-Francis, I think, did enough last year to justify his thing, and he's only going to improve further. That 21.8 disposals and 5.8 clearances, I would expect shifts closer to 25 and 7 or 8 over the course of this year. And what is most important about him and what makes him so dangerous is the other point here of 27 goals. I think that could probably increase to closer to 35 this year as well. And if he does that, then he's contributing just like a small forward would with the numbers of a midfielder. His tank's getting better. His body is continuing to build. This guy could be the best player in the competition very soon. Zach Merritt is one that, and this is maybe some personal bias here at 18. I think he's vitally important to the Essendon Football Club, but I don't know if he's a top 25 player. Not because he lacks the skill. His skills are up there at the absolute tippy top of the competition. But he's primarily a handball person. He doesn't cut you up yet. When he does kick it, he laces you out. He rarely misses a target. It's incredible. I would love to see him kick. For him to justify this 18 spot and potentially climb even higher, I think he needs to use the ball by foot more than what he already is, because it's such a weapon that he's got, and I think he keeps it holstered a little bit too often still. Number 17 is another cat, Tom Stewart. And I think this is... 2024 was a weird sort of a year for him. Obviously, he struggled pretty early on the piece as he was getting tagged in the defensive end of the ground. Then he went to the midfield where he was pretty electric and clubs couldn't handle him. And I think this year we'll kind of see a bit of a hybrid of both of those things. If he's starting to get a bit of attention in the in the defensive end, he'll shift into the midfield. As that frees up, he goes back into defense. He can rely on the likes of Zach Guthrie to step up to the plate and Jack Henry, etc., to really do the Tom Stewart role while he's not around. But then once he's kind of off the leash a little bit, he can maybe get back into that defensive end and play his game once again. I think he's going to be absolutely huge for the Cats this year. And I think pick 17 based on last year is about right. But I think that could climb, especially if he's able to get back to his old ways. Jesse Hogan, I think, is maybe a little bit low. He's the Coleman medalist. He's absolutely dominant. He's obviously got a broken thumb at the moment. That's going to cost him a little bit of game time. I don't know how many in the end. He did cop enough of the week from me this week for the act that led to that. But he's a weapon. He's absolutely crazy good, and I think can do some pretty extraordinary things for the Giants this year. He's hoping for his sake that he's back out on the field nice and soon. But look, he's taken a fair road to get here. It highlights the Melbourne and Fremantle parts of it. But I rate this guy. He's just so hard to beat in a one-on-one. He's pretty good at ground level too. He's elite. Caleb Sarong just accumulates the ball like few others in this competition. He does it so easily. His disposal is so good. He is so consistent already. I think he could do more in terms of where like pushing the ball up the ground. He's still pretty handy in front of the sticks. He's still pretty handy going forward, but I think he'll still, and admittedly, he's a clearance player in some respects. So part of that sometimes involves you having to handball it. But I think they can kind of shuffle the deck a little bit at Freo so that he's more on the outside of the inside group, if that makes sense. So that he can kind of utilize some of those weapons a little bit while still kind of being at the coalface. I think it's a pretty good ranking, though. Sam Taylor, if it's not Harris Andrews, Sam Taylor is the best key defender in the competition. They are certainly 1 and 2. I'd argue that he could probably slip back in the list and be closer to where, probably, if anything, closing that gap between Sam Taylor and Harris Andrews is probably the key thing, because both of them, they rarely get beaten in a contest. But I think for both teams, it's the team defense, the unit that they've got set up that really allows these two to utilize their strengths. And he's probably done a better job of it in the last 12 to 24 months, but Harris Andrews right up there with him. These two are absolutely brilliant and are going to be the best key defenders in the competition for quite some time. Toby Green, I would say he's too high. Obviously, Toby Green is box office. Absolutely incredible what he does. Pretty good at swatting a few people, kneeing a few people, and getting fines as well. But based on his 2024, which was down quite a bit on what we kind of use, or not quite a bit, but down a bit on what we're used to from Toby, I would say 13 is too high. I think 13 is a good spot when he's in full flight, and perhaps even a bit low when he's at full flight. But if we're talking about 2024 and the criteria that they have set, I would say Toby Green is too high here. Chad Warner, there's a lot said about Chad Warner, and of course his playing future's kind of in the spotlight a little bit. But when it comes to Chad Warner, he just accumulates the ball with ease. He's so dangerous. He's so fast. He's got so many really awesome qualities for a midfielder in this modern game. I think he's maybe a smidge overrated still at this point. I don't think he's done enough of it yet, but he's pretty close. I'd say he's a top 25. I'd probably have him closer to 20 than 12, but is what it is. Bit like Errol Goulden, who I think needs to do more for longer. Now, of course, he's injured and he will slide as the team themselves referred to. And at least here, they stuck to their criteria, where based on 2024, he's on the 25 and he belongs in the 25. I would argue, again, a bit like Chad Warner, maybe a smidge high, but not far off the mark. Probably somewhere between 15 and 20, I would say. He'll get to that point very quickly with his absence. I'm sure he'll probably slip off the list actually almost right away as soon as they do their next one, because he won't be playing through that time. But, I mean, he's still elite. He's absolutely incredible. Charlie Curnow, the second best key forward in the game as far as I'm concerned. No, actually, I'm going to say third. I think Jesse Hogan's got him covered because of what he can contribute in multiple different facets. And they talk about, obviously, Charlie winning the Coleman in 2022 and 2023. But if we're being realistic, he filled his boots on some low-ranked teams in those seasons, inflated those numbers. One is Coleman, I think, still deservedly so, but inflated those numbers and pinched some Colemans in the process. I think he's still got some work to do on his game. I don't think he's versatile enough yet in ways that both Jesse Hogan and the other key forward, Jeremy Cameron, who we'll talk about soon, I think, I hope, I presume. Surely Jeremy Cameron's on the list. In ways that those guys do, I think he still needs to, I think he's half a step behind both of them in that respect. Max Gawn, the best ruckman in the game, but I think we're going to see the likes of Darcy Cameron and those sorts of guys come for him over the course of this year. I think there's a great crop of ruckman coming through. Max is obviously towards the end of his career now. What is it? He's 33. He's 33 this year, so he's going to be starting to slip in the quality of his game a little bit. But right now, he still is absolutely the best ruckman in the competition. I have no concerns with that in the slightest. Zach Butters is probably another one that I also like. He's incredibly damaging as the article talks about here. But I think, I think this is about right. He's going to only improve. He's going to continue to develop that game further. I wonder if maybe you could, like, as this season plays out, I'm wondering if Jason Horne-Francis doesn't overtake him, but he's going to be right there or thereabouts. He is out with an injury though, so that's going to cause him to slide. Lachie Neale is one that I do think is too high. Not because he's incapable. He's brilliant. He gets the ball heaps. He's won a few Brownlows recently. Some will argue whether he's deserved those Brownlows, but I think you've got to pay respect to anyone who wins a Brownlow medal. He's done an incredible job. But I think there's several other midfielders, more than at least half a dozen players that are better than Lachie Neale. Again, he's a top 25 player. I'd argue he's a top 15 player, but he's probably closer to 15 than he is to 7. So just my 2 cents on that one. Christian Petrarca, I would question his rankings simply because of the amount of game time he missed last year. Based on their criteria, I think he's too high. There's obviously a ton of potential. I think in full flight, he's pretty much the best and most dominant player in the game. But based on the criteria, he doesn't belong this high up the list. He should get back to this point on the list pretty quickly, I hope, for his sake. But I don't think he belongs on the list right now. Also, good facial hair, Christian. We're kind of rocking the same sort of things. Great minds. Here he is, our man, Jeremy Cameron. Arguably the hardest matchup in the league, they say, and I wholeheartedly agree. The way and I talk about our key forwards, I talk about this with Charlie Curnow, and I talk about this with Jesse Hogan. The ability to play tall, which is your key role, but also small, is Jeremy Cameron's greatest asset. When that ball hits the ground, he is just as dangerous as a Tyson Stengel or a Charlie Cameron or any of those guys who are buzzing around at ankle height, and yet he's bigger, stronger, and arguably faster than pretty much all of them. It's crazy how good this guy is. And he can just pull out, like he's a magician as well. He's got every facet of the key forward role in 2025 ticked. Absolutely belongs here. I'd argue he's maybe 1 or 2 spots too low. Isaac Heaney, I think, is too high, but that's because I don't think they're talking about this over multiple years. And of course, 2024 was a breakout for Isaac Heaney in particular. But I don't think he's done it for long enough yet to justify being this high. He had a sensational season. And if you're a Swans fan, you should be stoked with what he delivered. But I would want to see that again before he entrenches himself on this list. Brownlow medalist Patrick Cripps, I've got no questions with this. I've got no concerns with this. He's a bull. He continues to do his thing. He's absolutely phenomenal. Love him. Good work. Bond, for the same reason, which then leaves, of course, and of course, Bond's going to slip a little bit for injury, but he'll rebound and get back to that spot pretty quickly. And then there's Nick Dacos, who is going to spend a lot of time at the top of this list in the future. He doesn't belong there now. I think every single one of these players in the top 5 should be higher than Nick Dacos right now. Right now. In time, he will continue to climb. But right now, I don't agree with it. But he's still undoubtedly a brilliant player. Needs to work on his conditioning a little bit so he doesn't cramp in his very first game back. But this guy's a jet. And the Pies have got something special with him. And he's going to spend a lot of time on this list in the future. Let's quickly pick through the 25, the ones who are there or thereabouts. Jacob Wiedering, I'd agree with, is pretty close to that best key defender in the comp. Tom Green, Sam Walsh, Hayden Young, Jeremy McGovern is quite high. I think he's brilliant, but I'm surprised that he's that high. I feel like his age has maybe worked against him a little bit. Jordan Dawson, I think, should be on the list. Dan Houston, that's fair. Matt Rowell. Sam Darcy is very high. Sam Darcy is very, very high. Shea Bolton could climb back into the list with a good year this year. Andrew Brayshaw, Luke Davies-Uniacke, Connor Rosie. Adam Treloar and Patrick Dangerfield as some elder statesmen on the list. Interesting choices, but I could see it for both. Tommy Papley, Noah Anderson, Charlie Cameron, Hugh McCluggage, Scott Pendlebury, Marshall, Ashcroft, Blakey, Sinclair Reid. I'm okay with pretty much all this. Harley Reid's probably a little bit high. Again, he's played one season. He didn't absolutely light it up in his debut season as the number 1 pick. But whatever. Throw him on the list. That's fine. At 50, he's not part of the actual 25. I can deal with that. It's a good group in terms of the group that is kind of coming through and finishing this off. I'm looking forward actually to kind of reacting to this more and more over the course of the year. This is a great 25 for the most part. I don't think there's many or any players that don't belong on the 25 at all. And if I don't believe they belong on the 25, then they're pretty close behind. Like the likes of Sheasel and Rankin that I kind of picked on before, I think and probably Max Holmes actually for that matter, they definitely are kind of in that 25 to 35 sort of ballpark, like knocking the door down. But I think it's overall pretty good. So really interested to see how this one develops over the course of the year. I'll certainly probably do more reactions to this as they continue to update it with my ongoing thoughts, rolling thoughts, just like they have. Anyway, we'll wrap things up there. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All the buttons down below. There's lots of awesome content on the Hoops Crew that you can check out. We've got Postgame Live. We've got the Paul James Show live every Thursday and Sunday. We've got the Chaps Chat Cats on Tuesdays. We've got the Twos. There's so much content on our YouTube channel. Subscribe and go and check it out. If you want more, consider the Patreon, where for $5 a month, you'll get access to exclusive content, early access content, and extended content delivered straight to your email inbox. So check that one out. $5 a month is all it takes. And you can even subscribe for free for 7 days to try before you buy. In terms of socials, you'll find me at Paul James Games, and the Hoops Crew. Well, you'll find them at the Hoops Crew on the Blue Skies, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere you can that I've just mentioned, you'll find us. And until next time, that is the top 25 players in the AFL according to afl.com.au, and a quick reaction to those. Thank you very much for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.